So for those of you that this is the first time meeting me, my name's Garrett. I have my own technology company, or IT company. We go by Gopher IT, a lot catchier than Walco Technology Solutions. But I'm here today to talk about digital estates, which is it's been important for the last 10 years, but of course as everything digitizes, it's becoming increasingly important. And so I figure you're wondering, what is a digital estate? So it encompasses all things digital that you do. That includes social media, finances, if you have any kind of website, online business, or even that needs passed on or held on to or that you want to keep, it's all included in that. And then, of course, there's the files on your computer itself. Pictures, photos, documents, anything that someone may like to have or that you want to hold on to. And so they're important because it offers protection not just for you in terms of identity protection, but a lot of that information, if it's leaked, it can actually be used against family members. If they get some information, detailed information against you, they can use it against someone that knows you. It also prevents, like I said, identity theft and from folks accessing any of your information without your know-how or knowing. And so it gives the peace of mind for you that, one, they're protected, two, that you have some recourse to pass on those important files to someone close to you if they're interested in having them. And if not, you at least know you've done your part to make sure that it's there. And so the digital estates, like I said, it's all online accounts, all of your digital files, financial accounts, and digital property, websites, blogs, and cryptocurrency even, if anybody's into that. But it's a huge topic, and it's, as you know, a lot of your doctor visits, all of that information is coming back digitally. You log into a web portal and you look at the results, and that information, very important to you, likely important to those close to you, at least some of the family. And there's tools in place to allow you to share that access. But we'll cover that shortly. And so, just real quick, there's only 4 of you here, but if you have 10 digital accounts or less, anyone have less than 10? 10 to 50. Probably more than 50, because I know I'm in that boat. I think last I checked, I have at least 200 or 300 logins, and that's just web logins. I have a website and a store and another website and some other stuff. I have a lot of it. There's a lot of younger entrepreneurs and even older ones that are really, it's a digital storefront. They don't have a store location. They sell exclusively online. And then you see all of the social media influencers that, that is their company, is their YouTube channel. That's their income. That's how they make their livelihood. And so they need to have some kind of recourse that if something happens to them, it doesn't just stop. There's some potential for a loved one or somebody that also works with them to assume control of it and at least close it in a way that makes sense and not just kind of leave that hanging. And so today we'll look at the types of digital assets, ways and steps that you can take to manage them. We'll touch on the technology and tools. We'll even touch a little bit on AI. And then we'll go over some real world scenarios in which I can either envision or having some of this set up has directly impacted myself or someone close to me. And so the types of digital assets. Social media accounts, big ones. Your Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of those, if you use them. I'm sure that there's someone you know that does. But a lot of these kind of give you a sense of, kind of a peek into your life, either through connections, shared memories, shared photos even. A lot of folks use platforms like this to share pictures of an event or just family photos. It's in addition to, of course, maybe handing out some, but a lot of times this is simpler. You can access it no matter where you are. You don't have to remember to bring them. There's professional ones like LinkedIn that sort of is your professional identity that might be important, especially for like the more online focused folks. Digital files is everything on your computer. Photos, documents, videos, anything else that you can think of that might be important. There's a few folks that I've helped that have a family tree maker. And so all of the files that surround that actually allow it to show the family tree in a nice way, that's very important to her. And so she wants to make sure that it's handled appropriately and passed on at least to her son, who can then do as he will with it. You have financial accounts, of course your banking, other investment accounts, brokerages, investment, it doesn't much matter. They're all in this boat. Not so much ones that you interact with. It's kind of a passive. You just check on it, occasionally make adjustments to it. Then, of course, cryptocurrency. That is exclusively online, and those wallets, they're called a wallet. When you have a digital cryptocurrency asset, it's called a wallet, and it's stored in a cryptographic manner, but you can't access it if you don't have the right password. There's actually a lot of folks in the last 10 years who have lost that password, and no one can access that money. It's just sitting there doing nothing, and it will be that way till the end, or until they figure out how to crack it all. But it's essentially dead in the water. It's just sitting there because they lost it. They didn't manage it appropriately. Of course, I said digital property, websites, blogs, online businesses. A lot of younger folks have a storefront. I have a storefront. I use it mostly just for my polos and a few other things. But it's there. I've had a few blogs through my time. I know a lot of folks that have dabbled in it, especially if they were on the internet 10 to 20 years ago. And of course, websites. My company has one. I have one for a personal project. Pretty much anybody can have a website anymore. They make all of those tools real easy. But if it's something that is important to you, of sentimental value, or maybe to a loved one, it should also be, of course, included in your digital estate. And so, in your opinion, what do you think is the most important for you to properly manage and make sure it's in order if something were to happen? Social media, online financial accounts, your digital files, your pictures, videos that loved ones might want, or digital property, the businesses and blogs. So I'm sure each one of you kind of has a different take on that one. And so we'll get into some tools about managing the digital estate. Of course, like any estate plan, of course, you have to inventory what you have. Can't manage it if you don't know if you have it or not. I like to use certain tools, like all of my logins, we'll get to it, are nicely organized. I can search through it. It has the login information that I need. And at the same time, it's also a convenient inventory of at least most of those online accounts. They're all there, and it's all in order. The files. Do you have a backup made? Do you want certain files to be insured against something happening? And of course, property. Can't pass it on if we don't know that you have a blog or a website or that online storefront. And of course, the digital world moves a little faster than the physical world. And so while you might update a regular estate plan every couple of years, or if there's a significant change, of course, you can open 5 to 10 new online accounts in under an hour. And so it has the potential to grow and change very quickly. So it's very important to keep it updated. And so we'll cover some of those tools in a moment. And of course, how do you make sure that it's not accessed in a way that you didn't intend it to be accessed by someone that you didn't intend? And so I suggest strong and unique passwords for each account, not just one that gets reused over and over. It's convenient, but it's a very bad idea. And of course, to help with that is the password manager. It is a software tool that essentially inventories and manages all of your logins. And of course, two-factor authentication. I'm sure if you have any online accounts at all, you're used to sometimes getting a text message or an email or a phone call. I've noticed some of the investment accounts still do phone calls, just to make sure that someone didn't leak the password somewhere and they're trying to get into the account and that it's actually you trying to sign in. And of course, with all of that encryption, any good password manager is heavily encrypted, only unlockable by the password, otherwise it's just gibberish. But your digital files on your computer, depending on what you have on there, never hurts to have it encrypted in case that's lost somewhere. It's a little different. That one's more of like a physical security kind of thing. But some people asked at the last time I gave this about the password manager and the encryption for the password manager. And afterwards, they gave me a very good demo that, if you have enough monkeys on typewriters, eventually you can type the entire works of Shakespeare. But it might take longer to do that than the universe will ever exist. And so it's kind of one of those things. If your password manager has a strong password, it might take hundreds of billions of years to brute force that password. And so it's essentially unaccessible by anyone that doesn't have that password. And so other things to consider as we move towards it, you can actually have digital wills. Keep all of those files digitally there. There's actually some online services that, I can't remember exactly what they're called, but they essentially store all of that, and you can, of course, custody or share access to anyone that you deem needs to have access to it. There's even new fields springing up that where you might have a regular estate executor, you can actually designate a separate digital executor, someone whose sole job in managing your estate is to only deal with the tech side of it, to work alongside the executor, to actually get them access to any accounts that they need, or to recover all of the photos and everything and compile it all together. And of course, local laws, it's about 4 or 5 months now that I've been trying to get in contact with an estate lawyer to really nail in what West Virginia's digital estate laws may be, but I have yet to have success. Almost every one of them wants me to sign up and actually go talk about my estate, and they don't seem to quite understand that I'm asking from a business standpoint of what I might be able to suggest or what they might recommend I suggest or that someone could suggest. And so now we'll get a little more into the tools and technologies that we can use. So software and platforms, of course, like I said, password managers. I have, for the last 2.5 years or so, used Bitwarden. I actually have set several other people up with Bitwarden. But of course, there's OnePass, LastPass, some newer ones, ProtonPass, which comes as a part of a whole sort of privacy-oriented suite. But Bitwarden would be the one that I recommend. And of course, for your digital files on your computer, of course, you have physical. You can store it locally on a backup hard drive. I actually have one with me. They can be rather small. This is, I think it's a 1 1 terabyte. And on this, I use this one to help folks recover files and everything else. And there's probably at one time has been 2 or 3 computers worth of data all on there, and it's tiny form factor. But if you want to do it in the cloud, which allows you to maybe share it with family across the world, or if they need access to it shortly thereafter, they don't have to physically travel to you to recover it. There's, of course, Google Drive. If you have an Apple phone or a Mac computer, an Apple computer, there's the iCloud. And then there's third parties like Dropbox. And then there's a plethora of other ones. But those are kind of the big 3 that allow you to remotely back it up and keep a copy of it all. And so in the password manager, I strongly recommend everyone use one that allows you to secure your accounts. Like I said before, it conveniently inventories all of your online accounts. And then it's relatively easy to pass that on to your state executor. All you have to do is share what the service is, the username, the password, and any 2-factor authentication. And they have not only then access to all of your online accounts, but all of the logins that they need to manage it however they need to manage it. And so, of course, like I was saying, with the backup solutions for your digital files, there's local, like that hard drive. There's remote, and of course it's important that it's regularly done. Because if you don't update it for 6 months, and 5 months in, your computer crashes and you've done a lot in the last 5 months, you might lose those, or perhaps in transport, if they're taking it to another city or state, something happens and it's lost, either through damage or it just happens. So having a little bit of redundancy and regularly updated redundancy is incredibly important. And so do any of you use any of those tools? A password manager, online backups? Okay. And so I would suggest that you do. If you need help with it, let me know. I'd be happy to help you. I'll touch quickly on some of the AI developments. Last time I was here was a presentation on AI. So they have what's called an online, they're developing. There's a company, I think in California, and another one in Europe that are dabbling in this. They take as much of your digital information, and if you set it up while you're still living, of course, I'm sure they have a long line of questions, and they want to see what you have to say about all this stuff. But they take all of that data in, run it through what's called a language model. It's essentially something that allows it to predict what the next word is going to be. And if it's trained, if it's given all of your information, it will pick your likely next words. And so they can use that to sort of have that persistent digital avatar, some digital version of you that a loved one can go and talk to or get closure or all manner of things, good or bad. I won't make judgment on that. But they also can use that kind of thing, similar artificial intelligence tools, to go through your local files. You know, all of your pictures, maybe they weren't all that well organized, they were just kind of dumped on your computer. And using AI tools, it can identify that, oh, all of these pictures are of the beach. And so we'll allow you to search for beach pictures, and here they all are. Or you train it, you tell it, it'll ask you, oh, these faces are the same, who's that? Oh, it's Joe. So you search for pictures of Joe, and it's all the pictures they had of Joe, or with Joe in it. Which simplifies the process of trying to wrangle it in if it wasn't decently managed or well organized. But I think that persistent digital avatar, there's someone, I want to say it's in Europe, France, that was given like a terminal cancer, you have about a week to live. and one of the companies reached out to him. I haven't followed up on how it works or how well it works to his loved ones, but they were consent pulling all of his information and talking to him and recording it. I failed to mention one of the very interesting things, if they can, some of the tools out there, if they can record you talking for just a couple of minutes, they can have it not only pick words that sound like you, but it will actually sound like you. They can talk and will sound like you, relatively similar to how you would actually speak, because it's picking the right words and it's able to imitate your voice. So, of course, ethical and privacy concerns. Of course, do you consent to using that kind of technology? How do you address whether that's, are you actually interacting with your loved one or not? And then, of course, how do you prevent that system from revealing more about you to anyone in the world or anyone at all than you intended? And, of course, some of that is that, keep in mind, the tools that they use to do some of that stuff, that persistent digital avatar, can be used right now on a phone call or a video of you. And so it's kind of scary. As they develop those tools, it's a game of cat and mouse. They can be used for malicious purposes as well. And so we're going to touch on a couple of examples of digital estate management and scenarios where it might be useful or has been useful. And so, myself, as a modern small business owner, digital executor, if I appoint one, I have not yet, it's currently just me, but if I appoint one, if I get sick, there's still someone that can manage my social presence, update the store as needed, and just make sure that continuity of all of that stays the same. And of course, like I said, my websites and social media, I can maintain that presence. Even if it's not me that's doing it, it can appear that the business is still active, moving. And of course, protection and security. I leverage a lot of the tools available to make sure that my accounts are secure and that only those that I deem okay to access it can access it. I brought a few of those tools with me. I'll show you. There's one, mentioned two-factor authentication earlier. There is a little tool. I should have pulled it out earlier, but I wasn't thinking. It's called a security key. Just a little device. But it allows you have to plug it into the computer. And it's essentially like when they send you the text message, except it has some sort of handshake it does with the website. And it's sufficiently encrypted or difficult that you essentially cannot impersonate it. You have to have the device. And so all of the core accounts that I use, website and many others, are secured with such a device. So that it's only me, or if I ask someone to log in, I can hand them the key and give them the login, and they can access it. But otherwise, it's nigh on impossible. Fantastic to use, but I'm a little bit of a security nut. So I like to be extra secure online. And of course, then there's my grandmother. It's fantastic. So she was diagnosed with cancer, given, I think it was 6 to 8 months. She ended up going 3 years. But in all of that, we set her up with a password manager for all of her online accounts. Made it pretty easy for her to use all of them. Took us less than a week, once she did pass, for me to gain access of her Facebook and Amazon and everything else, because I had it well organized. And it would have taken probably the better part of a day, but I was juggling all kinds of other stuff in that. My dad essentially handed me her phone and her laptop and said, I want everything that you can give me. And so we did. We could have prepared more, which I wasn't necessarily thinking about all of this at the time. I just kind of was trying to make her secure and make sure that we kept her safe online. She was brave. She'd sign up for like anything and try to use all the new stuff. So she had a very bad habit of reusing the same password for everything, and a relatively weak password at that. And she would always buy stuff online, so her card was out there tied to a lot of those accounts. And I didn't want someone buying stuff with her cards. That's why we set it up, not because I was thinking of digital estates, but in hindsight, it was a fantastic idea. It saved me so much time, saved my dad a lot of headache, because we were able to go in and immediately cancel her Prime subscription, her Walmart Plus, because she was having food delivered, and pretty much anything that was going to automatically charge the estate, I was able to just go in and cancel. And so my dad didn't have to deal with the headache of stopping payments or canceling the card, and allowed him to continue to pay for things out of the estate that he needed to get to manage the rest of it. And of course, here's a scenario when none of this is done. There was a resident at the village at Heritage Point. I do a lot of work over there for the folks too. But her husband died relatively unexpectedly. Much like my grandmother, he was a brave guy. Had a lot of online accounts, bought a lot of stuff online, and a lot of things that were subscription-based. Well, she didn't want to do anything. She put all of that off onto her daughter. And I found them about 6 months after the fact, and she didn't really want any help with it, but at that point had said that I've been paying all of these subscriptions for 6 months. I haven't shut anything down. We're still paying for this and that and the other, and I can't shut down his cell phone and all kinds of other stuff. It was stressing her out. But she had said that, she's a teacher, and the school year was coming to an end, and so she should be able to get it done. And that person has since moved back to Georgia, where she came from. And so I really don't have a lot of recourse to help them further. But the last I checked in, it had been 8 or 9 months. This is only 3 months ago that I checked in, and she still was trying to deal with some of it. She didn't want to shut any of it down because of the two-factor authentication. He had some of that set up to go to the cell phone, so he had to keep the cell phone. And, fishing for passwords, trying to figure out where he left them, and do you even know if you've closed down all of the accounts at that point? Because there was no inventory of what he had. And so it was just a huge headache for her. And so, what is your biggest takeaway from all of the possibilities in this? I think it's important to consider the composition of your digital estate, online accounts, your files that you want to have saved and passed on. Utilize the tools that are available to help you. Of course, like everything, if you can plan ahead, prior planning prevents poor performance. And of course, like a regular estate plan, update it, maintain it. If something big changes, update it. Make sure it's included. And so, thank you. Anyone have questions? I saw you making some notes, but